Okay, I'm back for part 2. So Brian's family lives on Hill R. Here is Hill A and Hill R. So Hill A stands for America. Hill R stands for Russia or the Soviet Union. Brian also wants to protect his family. And he and his family often hear the shooting going on across the valley at Blake's house. So the United States' house. Already suspicious, Brian becomes almost paranoid that Blake is up to no good. Even though there's no evidence that Blake wants to hurt him, Brian is sure that he will soon become Blake's target. So Brian installs a high-security fence, which represents the Berlin Wall and also the Iron Curtain, around his property to both protect his family from enemies and to keep his family from leaving their own property. He thinks if he maintains control of his family, he'll keep them safe. Blake learns about Brian's fence, and a spy tells Brian about the firepower of Blake's weapons. Pretty soon, Blake and Brian are trying to outdo each other. They compete constantly to show the townspeople who is more powerful. Some townspeople know that Blake is a nice guy, but they're also impressed with and intimidated by his wealth and firepower. They side with Blake and offer him money and support to develop more powerful long-range weapons. They also create a pact that they will all defend each other if Brian decides to ever attack them. So this is like the NATO power having more and more people, more and more countries join it. Others townspeople side with Brian. After all, he's the town's mayor and he's doing a good job, and offer him money and support to develop better weapons. They even build fences around their properties just like Brian did. The townspeople who support Brian also form a pact and promise to defend each other if Blake ever attacked them. So this is an example of more and more countries joining the Warsaw Pact. Years go by this way with Brian and Blake constantly competing. The tension escalates to where they openly threaten each other. The townspeople live in fear. They're under a constant doom cloud, just waiting for the day Brian and Blake will explode at each other in a major violent fight. They've heard about massive weapons and know their homes and property would be destroyed. Many of the townspeople are so fearful of this apocalypse they make preparations for it, planning how to get out of town, building bunkers where they will hide. The school children even practice regular alarm drills to hide under their desks, just in case. So like my parents did this. It was like, the Russians are coming, bomb drills, and they would have to hide under their desks. And yet, in spite of all the threats and tension, Blake and Brian never fire a single shot at each other. They never fight at all, physically. But Blake challenges Brian to stop controlling the people and to tear down the walls. That's an example of President Reagan, telling Gorbachev or somebody to tear down the wall. Some of Brian's allies agree with Blake. They're frustrated with the way the mayor, Brian, runs the town, always with so much control and tension, even insisting that they all call him Mayor Brain instead of Brian. They want rights as individuals, not for the government to tell them what to do. They want choices and freedom. So they take down the fences around their property and start to build their own freer towns. Others leave and go with them. As more and more of Brian's allies reject his controlling leadership and start their own little town, Brian loses influence. So this is the Soviet Union losing its power around the world, and then going back to Russia. And they lost a whole bunch of land, the Soviet Union did, in around 1991. Mayor Brian panics he's losing power. He tries to prevent people from leaving the town and forming their own. He works hard to keep his allies loyal to him, offering them favors or intimidating them. But this takes so much energy, Major Brian doesn't have time to spy on what Blake is doing, even though the Brian-Blake tension-filled drama has now gone on for more than 50 years. Brian realizes his own town is falling apart. He has to save it, and Mayor Brian, he gives up on fighting with Blake for now. So basically what this is saying is the Cold War went on for about 50 years, and the reason that it ended is because the Soviet Union had bigger fish to fry. They couldn't try to keep up with the US anymore. And their economy was like not very good because communism isn't a very good economy. And so that is the end of the story with the boys. Dun, dun, dun.